In this video, I'll be taking apart the IQOO Z6. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. To start off, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Here's a better look at the SIM tray. Next, we'll need to use a hairdryer or a heat gun to apply heat to the back plate to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then we're going to use a plastic pry tool to pry the back plate off. Here's a better look at the plastic back plate. The camera lens covers can be replaced by applying heat and gently prying them off. Now there are 18 Phillips screws that need to be removed. Next, we need to place a plastic pry tool in between the back housing and the frame of the screen, and then run along the edges to pop off the catches. Now the back housing needs to be flipped over. And then this metal plate needs to be lifted up and removed. At this point, the battery cable can be disconnected. Once the battery cable is disconnected, we can proceed to disconnect the rest of the cables. The back housing itself is also made of plastic. There are antenna flex cables on the top sides, and on the other side we can see more antenna flex cables around the border of the frame. The fingerprint reader is also held to the side of the frame with a bracket. Moving to this metal plate, the LED flash cable is located here, and there's graphite film to help transfer heat. There's white graphite film on the other side. There's a blue coaxial cable on the main board that needs to be disconnected by just popping it off. Next, there's some graphite film covering the connector for the front-facing camera, which needs to be peeled off so we can disconnect and remove it. Here's a better look at the 16 megapixel front-facing camera. There are two standoff screws on the main board that need to be removed. Now the main board can be removed. On the main board, there's a 50 megapixel primary lens and a 2 megapixel bokeh and macro lens. None of the cameras have OIS or optical image stabilization. The camera connectors can be disconnected by just popping them off. There's a secondary microphone on the top corner, a white liquid damage indicator on the other corner, and there's copper tape on the front shields and rubber gaskets around the connectors. The SIM and memory card reader is located on the back, as well as the proximity sensor. There's more copper tape on the back shields and some thermal paste. Once the copper tape is peeled back, we can see more thermal paste underneath on top of the processor. Here's a better look with the thermal paste removed. Now the speaker assembly can be removed. There's some more graphite film on the speaker assembly to help transfer heat. In order to remove the battery, there's a pull tab provided to help us pry the battery off. Here's a better look at the 5000 mAh battery. Once the battery is removed and the battery adhesive pouch is peeled off, we have a better look at the flex cable for the screen, which is routed through an opening in the mid-frame, as well as this flex cable which connects the main board to the subboard. In order to replace the screen, you would have to remove the back plate and then the screws on the back housing. Then you'd remove the top cover on the motherboard. You'd disconnect the battery cable and pry the battery off, and then you'd have to also remove the battery adhesive pouch. Then you'd be able to disconnect the screen cable from the motherboard, and then you'd heat up the front of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath, pry your old screen off. You'd apply new adhesive, reapply your new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back through the opening in the mid-frame, and reassemble your phone. Once the green protective film is peeled off, we can see the copper heat pipe which runs underneath the battery as well as the motherboard. Next is flex cable which is connected to the subboard, as well as the other end of the coaxial cable need to be disconnected from the subboard. There's a single standoff screw which is holding down the subboard that needs to be removed. Now that subboard can be lifted up and removed. There's another liquid damage indicator sticker, which is the Y sticker in the corner, and there are rubber gaskets around the charger port, headphone jack, and this connector. The primary microphone is located underneath this shield. Here's a look at the other side. The vibrator motor is located here and held down with some adhesive. There are mesh filters and rubber gaskets over the microphone openings, as well as the speaker opening on the bottom. The flex cable for the power button and volume key is located on this side, and the earpiece speaker is located on top, and that's also held down with some adhesive. For the repairability score on this phone, I give it a 3.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply the back plate. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.